In this video, I will give you multiple optimal players at every position for the 1 o'clock main slate on FanDuel for Week 9 of the NFL this Sunday, November 9th. We started off the week hot, placing in the top 1% for Thursday Night Football, so let's keep it going through the weekend. My name's Quick Pick Nick, and having compared every single player's manually calculated projection with their FanDuel prices, here are your primary picks for today's main slate. If you like this kind of fast-paced calculated content, subscribe and stay tuned for more lineups throughout the season, including a Monday Night Football video dropping tomorrow. Starting off the lineup with our primary quarterback, my model recommends Deshaun Watson. Similarly to my daily fantasy sports record this season, Deshaun Watson is also on a hot streak, scoring more than 20 fantasy points in all 4 of his most recent contests. These performances included matchups against formidable opponents, including Green Bay and Tennessee, so if there was to be any team to put a stop to Watson's high-tier play, that team certainly wouldn't make an appearance today, as the Jaguars really don't have what it takes to slow down one of the top QBs in the league. So a few secondary quarterbacks you may want to consider include Russell Wilson, who my model projected to score the most fantasy points today, taking into account both his average during the season as the only player with more than 30 fantasy points per game, as well as Buffalo's relatively weaker secondary. Kyler Murray, who also has one of the highest fantasy averages in the league and has another great matchup with both a weak pass and rush defense in Miami. And Josh Allen, an always optimistic option considering his scramble potential, but may even shine through the air against Seattle's worst ranking defense in pass yards allowed. For the primary running backs, my model found David Montgomery and Chase Edmonds. As I've said before, Montgomery is Chicago's workhorse, and they will be sure to use him whenever they need to run the ball. Montgomery is the go-to for goal-to-go plays and should be utilized plenty in a game that will likely come down to which team has the higher time of possession. As for Edmonds, Week 9 is probably the best week to be a starting Cardinals running back, as Miami's rush defense is among the bottom 10 in the league, and with Kenyon Drake inactive for this contest, Edmonds will get just that start, which will allow him to score many fantasy points while remaining at a low cost on FanDuel for just $6,700. Some secondaries at running back, if these two don't work in your lineup, are Jordan Howard, the minimum cost temporary starter for the Dolphins, while both Myles Gaskin and Matt Breida remain inactive. DJ Dallas, who will likely find another start given Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde remain inactive, as he proved that the offensive line is the real star in Seattle's run game last week, scoring 20 plus fantasy points. And Justin Jackson, the Chargers' main running back, who should be able to continue his success in LA after scoring about 16 fantasy points against Denver's top-ranked defense versus running backs. For the primary receivers, my model found Tyler Lockett, Marvin Jones, and Julio Jones. All 3 of these receivers carry over 1-to-1 from my DraftKings primary picks video, which you can find in the description if you're looking for a more in-depth coverage on each of these receivers. But to keep matters concise, Lockett is the most undervalued player in both FanDuel and DraftKings rosters, meaning he's the one player you should absolutely make sure you find room for in your lineup. Marvin Jones will have another game as the wide receiver 1 for Detroit, with Kenny Golladay out yet again, this time with a great matchup against Minnesota, and Julio Jones' connection with Matt Ryan is as strong as ever, which certainly won't be stopped by Denver's middling secondary. Speaking of secondary, our secondary receivers for this FanDuel primary picks lineup include Cole Beasley, who is priced as a wide receiver 3 on FanDuel, but plays like a wide receiver 2 for Buffalo, which will prove bountiful against Seattle's vulnerable pass defense. Jerry Jeudy finding more opportunity with a more competent quarterback, Drew Lock, back under center for Denver, especially against a poor defense like Atlanta's, and Sterling Shepard, who will also be able to find an expanded role as the definitive wide receiver 2 in New York with Golden Tate sidelined. For the primary tight end, my model picked a cheap option in Logan Thomas, as he has been targeted at least 4 times in every game this season. Very promising consistency for a $5,000 choice on FanDuel. Secondary tight ends include Tyler Eifert, who's back from IR and costs very little to add, Hunter Henry, starting to form a bond with rookie Justin Herbert, and Darren Waller, a more expensive choice, but still the next highest projected tight end next to Kelsey. For the defense, my model chose the Steelers as the primary, given that they've only fallen below 7 fantasy points once this season, and will find their easiest matchup against an inexperienced quarterback in an underwhelming Dallas locker room. But one cheaper secondary if you want to save some cash is the Cardinals, simply because of their matchup against Tua Tagovailoa in his second NFL start. For the tertiary at flex, we really do have a lot of money to work with here, so with your remaining budget, feel free to take Allen Robinson, Terry McLaurin, or in our case, Will Fuller, as they all have enough volume to warrant picking them. That's what my model was able to come up with for the primary picks today on FanDuel this Sunday, November 8th. This video was intended to be a Sunday Night Football DraftKings lineup, but at the last minute, I decided to change plans because of the mass uncertainty surrounding the returns of both Antonio Brown and Michael Thomas, so it would have been impossible to make a video with high confidence, and I didn't want to put out a lineup I wasn't sure about. This has been Quick Pick Nick, the intersection for sports, data analysis, and speed. Thanks for watching.